Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's a winner every month of the year. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I like that. I think I'm trying to figure out if that's true, and I feel like probably not, but I'll take it anyway.
I would say you're competitive every month of the year.
That is definitely true.
That usually results in you winning.
Yes.
I play soccer with and against you.
Yeah, I think I said this before on the show. I used to think that I wasn't competitive until I had multiple different people, including my brother-in-law, tell me I was like the most competitive person ever. And then it only became really apparent to me when I realized that I cannot like go for a walk or go for a run or anything like that without always racing against something. So it's always like, I got to get to that telephone pole before the car passes me.
Do you race your own dogs?
No, because I would lose. I would lose or get bit or get yapped at, depending on which dog it was that I was walking.
Yeah, I feel like you are constantly looking for motivation.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's what keeps me good. I mean, you have to have that, though, right?
Yeah.
I think.
It's why I love being on soccer teams with you, though, because I know there'll never be a game where Taylor's just like, this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's only 3 points.
Yeah, I hope that that's somewhat kept in check. I hope I'm not the one who's, breaking the stuff at the end of the game.
Local referees have a meeting about you every week, I believe. The Rockwell update.
No.
Did you get Rockwell this week? We are here.
Still only 3 yellow cards my whole career.
We are here not to talk about Taylor Rockwell's innate competitiveness, much as we love it. We are here to talk. We originally called it winners and losers.
If it's not innate, is it just Nate?
Yeah, his innate competitiveness.
Okay, my Nate competitive. Yeah. That means it's just there for all to see.
It is.
Okay, got it.
But we're not here to talk about that.
All right.
We're here to talk January camp. So we've reviewed the game against Panama. We've reviewed the US game against Costa Rica. I feel like we got it right first time with Costa Rica. There wasn't really many more layers to go into. I think we watched it closely, basically. But what we're going to do is take a step back, look big picture at everything that's happened in the last month and a bit with the US men's national team. And we were going to declare winners and losers. But that felt a little harsh.
Yeah, I like yours way more.
So, yeah, I texted you earlier and said we'll do winners and not winners.
Yep.
I think that's fair?
Yes, I do. Because I think there are some... Matt Doyle wrote a similar article for MLS Soccer. And he had, like, his point was, like, some people... They didn't, like, their level was, I can't believe they're getting called into January camp. And now it's like, well, I could see why they were called in.
Yeah,
so they've increased. But to me, I don't know if that's necessarily winning. So that's why I like the not winning category. Because there's some who maybe seem like they should be in the winning, but I've got them in not winning. But that doesn't mean as much as saying they're a loser.
And it doesn't feel as harsh, right?
Exactly.
Saying loser. Especially now, there's a lot of people say loser in this very mean way. Naming no names, but you know who I mean. And Matt Doyle said the only losers this January and February were Panama and Costa Rica.
Yep.
So I think that's fair as well.
All
so
right.
Winners and not winners as a big picture look back at what, in my head at least, January camp, the Panama game, the Costa Rica game, and I'm sure mixed in there will be some talk about what happens going forward.
That works for me.
So I've talked a lot to begin with. I would like to invite you, Taylor, to nominate your first winner or not winner.
I've actually handcuffed 2 together, but we can take them in whatever order you want. I've said Walker Zimmerman and Aaron Long were big winners for me of this January camp.
Just scrolling down on my document because I have the exact same thing. I'm in agreement, but we'll hear your explanation first.
Sure, but I think because coming out of the Dave Sarachan era and all the friendlies that were played there, it felt like for sure our starting center backs, if we're in a back 4 for the foreseeable future, is Matt Miazga and John Brooks.
Yep.
I still
think
might be. It still might be, but I think that's the thing is that there's a might there. Whereas before it was, they're obviously our starters. Now that's a little bit because of what's happened with Matt Miazga at club level.
Yeah.
Sounds like Reading is helping him get back on track.
Yes.
But I still think anytime 2 center backs come in, one of whom Aaron Long was the captain when Michael Bradley was on the field, that's a big deal. But coming out of this, it feels like I could see them getting called into the next camp if there are more Europeans called in, them being Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman. And I'd be like, that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe there's Matt Miazga and John Brooks as well, but these 2 are the next guys, right?
Yeah, and I think they've given those other Matt Miazga would include in there, but Cameron Carter-Vickers, Tim Ream, maybe Jeff Cameron if he's still in that consideration for Gregg Berhalter. I think all of them have more to think about because these two gentlemen had such strong performances, and I would say such varied performances. Aaron Long just was a very solid defender. He put out fires. He used that speed.
Yeah.
But he was happy to keep possession moving. He was the leader that the U.S. needed.
He validated my claim that he's fast.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he definitely is fast.
So I'm the real winner here.
Did anyone say he wasn't fast?
Yes, but I think people took issue with it when I mentioned on Twitter that this is for a previous Dave Sarachan game. That one of the things I was looking forward to, I was trying to talk myself into enjoying the Dave Sarachan game.
I see.
One of the things I was looking forward to was Aaron Long's pace at centre back.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was just trying to rack my brain of did I ever say Aaron Long was slow? Because I don't think I know Aaron Long well enough to say one way or the other. I do now.
And unless you've got any more specific things you want to add.
I was just going to say, and then Zimmerman's distribution, I think was something that Gregg Berhalter will look at and think that's something we could use, as well as his flexibility in shifting wide.
Yep. So Zimmerman breaking the lines, really playing some passes that bypassed, say, Bradley or Trapp and Lima. Didn't even need to go through that conduit. He got it all the way into the attacking midfielders several times, right? But I would say as well, this is actually what I was going to say, is as well as Zimmerman's forward distribution being impressive, Aaron Long's simple lateral distribution, not flashy, but fast, right? It was high tempo, which is what Berhalter wanted. And it is weirdly hard to get centre-backs to just pass the ball quickly. It's also very important if you're playing a high-tempo game, because that's where it all starts, right? It's the player that kind of mostly has the ball, especially when you have a load of possession. So for Aaron Long to just keep it moving, even if it's just a fast, fizzing sideways pass to Zimmerman or out to Lovitz or maybe into Lima or Bradley or Trapp, it's really important that Aaron Long does that.
And I would say, flipping it around, though, is maybe if Long and Zimmerman have bad camps, they don't look like they've got that much chemistry together. Oh, Zimmerman isn't very good at sliding over when Lima goes forward. Then suddenly, maybe if Cameron Carter-Vickers can do it a little bit better, then that's great. Now, he is ahead of them in that ranking, at least theoretically. But I think that these two had such good performances, and Aaron Long, for example, he kept that ball moving. He did that job. If Cameron Carter-Vickers comes in and struggles to do that job, if you're Gregg Berhalter and you've got to win a game, if you've got to go to the Gold Cup and you really want to kind of stake your claim, win that tournament, you might look and think well, no, those two guys can do it, and I'm not sure Cameron Carter-Vickers can or whomever it might be. So I'm going to go with those two over CCV.
I've got a couple extra things to add here
What you got?
as well. Okay, Walker Zimmerman, he'd done a goal.
Yeah.
Which is always good.
He'd done a goal good.
He did done a goal. Aaron Long came into this camp, impressed Gregg Berhalter so much, he was captain.
He was
captain for both games. Aaron Long was captain. Previously, he's had 2 seasons of top flight experience. That's all he's got. He's 26. He's only played top flight soccer in MLS for 2 seasons. He only had 2 international caps coming into this game. He impressed Berhalter so much, he was captain over Michael Bradley. That makes him a big winner in the camp for me.
Yeah.
The other thing, I think this is an interesting tactical idea, the Daniel Lovitz role, where he essentially played left back, but then when we moved into Lima went into midfield, we moved into a back 3, basically a left centre back. If Miazga and Brooks come in, there's a chance that Aaron Long can still do that role. He could play the Daniel Lovitz role. If the request for the left back is to be an overlapping Marcelo type wing back, left back, that's not Aaron Long's game, right? But if it's to just shift from left back to left centre back, be left footed and keep the ball moving, I think Aaron Long is in that conversation as well. So it's not only the regular centre-backs. He has another spot opened up for him as well.
Yeah, and maybe this is a thing we'll go back to then consistently in this review, but it feels like Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman both gave Gregg Berhalter things to think about in a good way.
Yes.
It wasn't I got to figure this out because that did not work. It's that could work, and that means this could also work, and maybe he could be a left back, or maybe this, and now he has more kind of options. There's more variables in there in a good way because of their performances in this camp.
I haven't listed Austin Trusty or Mark McKenzie as either winners or not winners. Yeah. Does that feel the same to you?
It does.
Maybe it's just they were there. It was fine, but obviously Long and Zimmerman were always going to be the starters ahead of them, just on experience. Basically.
So I have an uncertain category of if they're. I think that probably pushes them into the not winners.
Yeah.
But that was where I had
not winners.
I had Reggie Cannon Reggie Cannon and Russell Knaus as not winners. We can talk
same.
about that later.
Yeah, let's get into detail on them later.
But then I had Trusty and McKenzie as uncertain. Yeah. Because they were in there, and I think the reason why maybe they were pushed up even to winning is because other players were cut, and those two were not.
So let's talk about the players that were cut then. I'm going to say my first not winner is Justin Glad.
That's
he was on the original camp. He was in camp, but then he was cut when it went down to I think 23. So he was deemed the 5th best centre back out of 5 centre backs. And I would add Kellen Acosta to this list, and the 2 goalkeepers as well, Bono and Miller.
Yeah, those are the ones that were cut. Yeah. But sticking with Justin Glad, I would say that when you're Glad and who is 21 years old now, if it's like, oh, you've got Omar Gonzalez and Tim Ream and Jeff Cameron,
Jeff Chandler.
Yeah, Jeff Chandler. It's a combination. Jeff Cameron and other center backs, like more veteran center backs, Matt Beasler, ahead of you. Well, yeah, they're all like 28, 29, 30, 31, whatever. Then you're sort of like, oh, I'm biding my time until I'm that next generation. But when Mark McKenzie and Austin Trusty are kept on there, two players who I think are younger than Justin Glad, they're 20 and 19, then suddenly you're looking at it and thinking, ooh, so then that does speak to
you're starting to get buried in other centre backs.
And it's also worth noting that this is a Justin Glad who was benched by Mike Petke at the end of last season in the playoffs.
He had a rough end of the season.
Yeah, and so that speaks to maybe a lack of development or just a lack of probably confidence that maybe will have to be adjusted because, at this point now he's 8th choice center back, potentially, maybe 6th at best, but probably even lower than that.
And he's a player we like a lot from what I've seen, but also out of form. I think he's the guy that still young, so maybe just keep an eye on him for Real Salt Lake at the start of 2019 Major League Soccer season, because it'll be a big thing if he can bounce back and get back in the conversation. Because a lot of people were hyped for him, ourselves included.
I'd be curious to see which player has the most call-ups and appearances in camp without caps to correlate with it, because Justin Glad might be up on that list.
Yeah.
There's a few other ones in there, but we don't need to worry about that now. Should we stick with not winners? Or
whatever you like to do. It's your turn.
Well, you talked about Kellen Acosta, so I think I want to keep us there because the Kellen Acosta cut, I guess, from camp. It seems like a strange.
I mean, along with Glad and all those guys, he was cut, right? Yeah,
he was,
because essentially others are ahead of him. Others were getting the tactical system better. Others were in better shape. I think is what
that's the thing that I find most troubling is that it wasn't just a. I think this is worse, that it wasn't just a he's not fit, so this won't work. And it wasn't just he doesn't quite get the system right now. We want to kind of work with him a little bit more, but we want to keep players in camp who can. It was both. It was we will work with him on his physicality and the physical aspect, and we'll work with him on the tactical side as well. And I think that's pretty damning for a player who, I think at the time that he was cut, had a link to a Premier League club. Obviously, that did not go through.
Yeah.
But it felt like maybe things were starting to come together. Now suddenly there are the negative question marks of, is it a fitness issue? Is it a discipline issue? Is it a technical issue? What is it? Is it a lack of understanding? So that's not good. But I think the other thing that I found so interesting is the communication from Gregg Berhalter on this, because I think it's really easy when you become a national team manager to sort of not feud, but you've got to kind of get to a process of, if you're looking at that Gold Cup as we have to win that so we can kind of cement our status as we're back, everything's okay.
Cement.
You've got to,
claim it.
Yeah, claim it. There you go. Then you're trying to win quickly. And I think when you're taking over, it might be very easy to be he wasn't fit, he didn't quite get it, I don't have time right now, so Kellen Acosta's out, we'll come back to him later. And then if you don't come back to him and you don't make it clear why, it becomes this he's frozen out Kellen Acosta now, and they're feuding, and they don't like each other.
But I like that he gave reasons.
That's what I'm saying.
And it sounds like he gave Kellen Acosta reasons as well. It wasn't just hey, Kellen, pack your bags. But
do you understand? That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Sorry,
I
should have explicitly said I agree with you.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's what I'm saying is that Berhalter, I think, went out of his way. He bent over backwards to be and it was not this, it was this.
Yep.
And to be very clear, if he would like to continue to work, he definitely put the ball firmly in Kellen Acosta's court.
And if you're Mr. Kellen Acosta, you can go away to Colorado and you can know what you've got to work on if you want to get back in the national team picture. The reason it's very clearly a not winner is that there's a lot of midfielders to add to this, right? There's Tyler Adams, there's Weston McKennie, there's Christian Pulisic potentially is one of those attacking midfielders. Yep. There's a lot of guys. So if you were sort of towards the bottom of the pile for January, then you're even farther down. For someone who could be considered in the past a regular pick in the full strength 23, it's definitely a change in status.
Yeah.
Status update for Kellen Acosta.
I think so. Yeah. But now that Berhalter has, in my opinion, made it clear, and it sounds like made it clear to Acosta before he left, he's probably now on the outside looking in, but the door is still open, which just means that he has to go out and, to your point, perform in preseason, when the season gets going, and then maybe he's back in there. But it takes it to that next level of what he has to do to get back into consideration. But because Berhalter has gone about it the way he has, my feeling is that you don't come away being I don't know, he left it very vague, and I didn't understand, and I always want to play for the national team, but I don't know what to do.
Berhalter, right?
Yeah. So I guess Kellen Acosta, a not winner, but maybe Gregg Berhalter, more of a winner.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to go there then. My big winner from this camp is Gregg Berhalter and the people who hired him. Okay. So basically Ernie Stewart, Nico Romain, and the now departed Ryan Mooney.
Okay.
So if you look back at January camp and the 2 games, to me, this is the best possible outcome of January camp and the 2 games.
Yeah.
He taught a load of players his system. it was very easy to spot his system take place on the field, and then his tactics, his style of play, his system, Berhalter ball, whatever we're going to call it, Greggy ball, was effective, right? It was effective in getting goals against Panama. It was effective in initially hitting an obstacle in Costa Rica, and then we saw Gregg Berhalter problem solve at halftime and fix it and win the game. Like, I know it's only Panama's B team and Costa Rica's B team, but it's the best possible scenario for the start to the Gregg Berhalter era. I can't imagine how it could have gone better.
Yeah, I mean, nor can I, which is why we didn't have like much criticism of Gregg Berhalter coming in. We had a few concerns.
Yeah.
We had a criticism about the entire process that got him here.
I guess Jay Berhalter's big sigh of relief so far.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm happy to see that it sounds like we've got tactics and there's a plan in place.
Yeah.
Still frustrated by the way it all went down, but that will probably fade as we progress.
Of course. Did you see, I've got one thing in my head. Did you see any inklings of future frustrations in your first two Gregg Berhalter games? You know how eventually you can feel positive about a coach, but down the road you start seeing a couple of things of like, oh, I wish you wouldn't keep doing that. I wish you wouldn't keep doing that.
Did you?
Just the one that I want to share was the lack of overlapping fullbacks because it was a thing we expected, but instead he did that Nick Lima thing. Like Lovett stayed home, Lima goes in the middle. So I thought we often saw the wide guys like say Baird and Abobasi or Areola and Baird and Lewis. They never had a fullback going outside of them, and I'm wondering if one day we'll watch a game being like, oh, I wish that winger wasn't on his own.
I see.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that's a minor quibble given what we're up against.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think I have the familiarity yet to say like, oh, he did this one thing. Because if anything, that feels like a thing I would then actively be looking for to then be frustrated with. And right now, there's nothing that stands out, so I'm going to keep it that way.
Okay. All right, lots more winners and not winners to discuss on today's Total Soccer Show. But first, today's show is sponsored by SeatGeek.
It sure is.
Our good old friends at SeatGeek. Do you know what, Taylor? Buying tickets to live events used to be complicated and confusing. But when you open up the SeatGeek app on your phone, it gets very easy, very fast.
That's right, because SeatGeek pulls millions of tickets into one place so you can easily find the seats that you want for a price you're willing to pay. If you're looking, say, maybe this January camp got you excited about Major League Soccer in the upcoming season, you've got some games coming up, and so you could go to, say, DC United. DC United's tickets are already available on SeatGeek.
All right.
Can you guess the two?
Acosta's still there?
He is, much to his chagrin, but maybe he's okay with it more so now. Yeah. Who knows?
I enjoyed your conversation with Sebastian Salazar about that, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You mean Basti? Basti Salazar? Yeah. Can you guess the two teams coming to Audi Field that are the most expensive tickets?
So I think Atlanta's the first visitor, right?
I think that may be correct, but you are correct. Yes, $51 for Atlanta.
Okay. I don't know. So you're asking me to just guess in the early season who's the most expensive visit?
It's not an obvious one, I don't think, or as much an obvious one.
Is it LA Galaxy?
You are close. It's LAFC.
Ooh.
It is LAFC. I think Galaxy fans and LAFC fans would say that you're not close at all. How could you get those two wrong? But those are the two. And then the other interesting trend was that if you are going to see DC United, it seems like maybe follow them away. Because DC United, not that big of a draw away. The cheapest tickets for DC are all when they're playing on the road, say at Montreal, at New England, or at Cincinnati. Yeah. So you could do that too.
Well, we don't have an airplane sponsor. So
we don't.
Things might get more expensive when you add it all up.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's a $15 difference. So you want to buy that plane ticket and fly round trip.
You're definitely not checking baggage.
No,
if you
not
can
so
find
much.
a plane at that price.
But if you did want to get tickets to DC United or any other MLS franchise or any other event out there, because they've got obviously sports, as we talked about, but concert, theater.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Theater, yes. Other sporting events, monster trucks, all up in there too.
We've actually done monster trucks before, right?
I have done monster trucks. You still want to go though, right?
I wouldn't say that.
I thought, wasn't there something that you wanted to do? Did you want to do wrestling?
No.
I thought you wanted to do something strange.
I wanted to go to an NFL game.
Oh, that's not that strange. I thought there was some weird event that you wanted to see when it came to Richmond that I was like, all right, okay, that's good. I think my wife wants to do wrestling, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, maybe. I just get to wrestling and just maybe I get a primer from Carl Anka. Yeah. And I just know what to yell about.
There we go. Perfect. So if our listeners want to do that and they want to save a little bit of money, our listeners can get $10 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app.
Yep.
So that's step one.
Okay.
Step two, enter the promo code TSS. That's promo code TSS for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
All right. SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets.
That checks out. So thank you to SeatGeek. Daryl Grove, more winners and not winners. I can't remember who went where last time.
I went last, but then you talked a lot during the ad. So
Okay.
I'm going to say Michael Bradley is a winner from the January camp and the 2 games.
Yep.
I know he only played one of the games, and I know he wasn't captain, but just based on the bit of feedback after we put the question out, there were a lot of people who were, to quote themselves, done, unquote, with Michael Bradley, who were very impressed by his performance against Panama. Just the fact that he moved the ball quickly, made some nice sort of clever through balls that he played, clever diagonal balls, did some defensive work. It was a bit more like watching the old Michael Bradley. And to me, it was evident in the column of, if you put Michael Bradley within a functional team and a tactical system that works, Michael Bradley is a smart, good, competitive player who will perform.
And I think also if you take away some of like, it's the same thing as like a computer when you've got like a bunch of different applications running, it slows down the speed of everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case with Michael Bradley in the past, that if he's got so many things to do, it takes him a little bit longer, or he's not as good as doing certain other things. And if you remove some of those tasks, suddenly he's operating a little bit faster.
His motherboard was running hot before.
Yeah, and so just some of the balls we saw him play, I think were more aggressive than we've seen, or more direct than we've seen. And I do think part of that was that he didn't have to put his foot on the ball and look around and think like, okay, well, I've got nobody to pass to in front of me.
Yeah.
I don't want to drop it back, but I guess I have to. Like, it just felt like it was much more of like, yep, that ball's on, and that ball is getting played in.
And I think it's worth thinking of this from Michael Bradley's perspective, and it's worth, this is a bit of a sidetrack, but getting into what the Berhalter system brings. If you're Bradley and you receive the ball, say, in central midfield, maybe just over the halfway line, and what's happened ahead of you is the left winger, say it's Abobasi in the first game, has pulled left. Corey Baird on the right has pulled right. You've kind of stretched open the defence a little bit. Jesse Zardes is making runs to try and make himself available. Christian Roldan is using that space after the defenders are stretched out. Georgi Mihailovic is using that space to make sure the defenders are stretched out. You've got Nick Lima buzzing around to your right or to your left. Suddenly it's designed to give you passing options, right? So Michael Bradley is never then stuck thinking, oh, I'm going to have to bend this ball around 4 people just to find someone. There's always options. And if you give him options, he can execute quickly, and Michael Bradley can make things happen.
I agree with all that, and I want to extend it further to say this. I was watching youth soccer this weekend, as you do, and it was really interesting to see. It was like U15, U16 girls, I think. My cousin was in town playing again.
Oh, yeah.
And I was watching them play, and it's so interesting to see, like, you'll see the center back get the ball, and she sees this run, and you can watch her, like, kind of be like, I know I probably can't hit this, but I'm going to try. And there's that moment of, like, I'm going to try to play this ball through, like, 2 waves of defense into the gap. And most of the time it didn't come off. But I feel like you could see that with the U.S. national team on occasion, especially against Costa Rica, where it felt like, ooh, that ball was almost on, but there was an extra touch or two, or it was just a little bit slower. And Michael Bradley, say what you want about him, and can be slow, don't get me wrong, but he is the one who can kind of thread that needle, who can find that pass. And I think that is one of the things that he brings. It's why we were so excited when he moved to Roma and had that successful time in Europe.
I remember those days.
I know, and it felt like that was the thing that set him apart from a lot of the other players in the pool, was that vision and kind of decisive ability. And I think that he was able to kind of bring that out in bits and pieces, and even just to like 10% more than we've seen in the past. It reminded me at least like, oh yeah, he can do all that stuff. I want him to stick around, if for no other reason to maybe help Will Trapp develop further, because I thought Will Trapp had a better camp than I would have expected. Yeah,
so rough first half maybe against Costa Rica, but he was part of the solution in the second half.
And I say
not least that ball to Jonathan Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. But I say like I would agree with that. Sorry, I didn't really like yes and you there. I was caught up in my head about the thing I just realized, which is that
you know Mead, but
well, it's more. I just realized that like I think there was a lot of expectation, weirdly, on Will Trapp and on Giassi Zardes because
of the relationship,
because they're coming from the crew. Yeah, exactly. And whereas I think maybe what might have been a like, he didn't have that great of a camp, has become a like, oh, he had a bad camp in Giassi Zardes' case, was because, well, here's a guy who knows the system, who knows the coach, and it still didn't quite work for him. I think Will Trapp could have had that same level of pressure and criticism, but that he hasn't, to me, indicates that he was able to adapt and change what was necessary based on what was asked of him.
I was really interested as well in the sort of switching out decision of Michael Bradley and Will Trapp.
Yeah.
Meaning that like Berhalter basically started, he was very clear about like, I'm going to put the best team on the field, the team that understands my system the best. And you saw that in like the only other change apart from Bradley and Trapp was Abobasi for Areola. And even that was probably because of Abobasi's head injury, right? So you might have seen the same starting 11, with the exception of Bradley started one game and I think played the whole game, and Trapp started another game, right? And you also saw, I'm sure you noticed this as well, in the Panama game, the first game, there was a lot of turning around and talking to Will Trapp.
Was there?
Yeah, from Gregg Berhalter. There was a lot of conversation with between Gregg Berhalter and Will Trapp. So it's funny, like, odd but interesting that they've become this interchangeable piece of the puzzle, which makes sense, right? They're very similar players, but it seems like they're both being given a chance to play the role.
Yeah. But that was, I think, the other thing that is important then, and it goes back to your point about like Gregg Berhalter coming out of this as a winner, is that if I had said to you, like, we're going to play a 4-1-4-1, and that one is going to be Michael Bradley or Will Trapp, you would have been going to this camp probably like, ooh, that seems like a recipe for disaster, because I don't know if they can cover that space and do all the work that's going to be asked of them. Yeah. And here we are coming out of it, and I'm thinking, like, yeah, okay, I can see that working going forward. That, to me, is a big indicator of what what positives came out of this, that now it could be Michael Bradley or Will Trapp used there, because it's not about covering all over the place. Well, that's my question, though, is like, if it's not about running all over the place and putting out fires, and it is just about distribution and like making sure you're leading the line and stepping, Tyler Adams can certainly do that, but it's then like he'll have to kind of raise that part of his game a little bit more.
It's exciting, isn't it?
It is, exactly. And I mean, that said, he seems to be raising his game on a weekend-by-weekend basis.
Yeah, so I haven't seen his performance for Leipzig. I'm actually very excited to see it. I've got it stored on Fox Soccer Match Pass. I'm looking forward to watching it.
All right.
Put it that way.
All right, yeah, but so that will, I guess that's a question for the future, is like, does Tyler Adams play there? Does he play for forward? Does he play that right back turning into a central midfielder spot? Who knows? We shall see.
Okay, so I did Michael Bradley. You kind of did Will Trapp, but
I did.
Let's go another one for you.
Okay, that works for me. I mean, I think the biggest, I feel like there's some obvious ones that we haven't got to, so I'll dive right in. Let's talk Nick Lima. Because I think Nick Lima...
Big winner. I'm going to show you my screen. I wrote big winner.
Yeah, I mean,
Nick
I
Lima.
think he is... Matt Doa had him as like the number one winner coming out of this.
Yeah.
Because he went from like, who is this guy and why is he in camp? To like, okay, he maybe should start there.
I've got him, came in as presumed second choice right back behind Reggie Cannon, whom we all love and have enjoyed recently, and leaves as the revelation of the camp, and with a strong argument for maybe starting over DeAndre Yedlin.
Yeah. I mean, it's another case.
Wild.
It's similar to the CCV case with the center backs of like, now DeAndre Yedlin's going to have to come into that, we would assume, next camp when there's an actual FIFA date, and he'll have to kind of prove that he can do it, or maybe he proves that or maybe he doesn't have to prove it, but to me that means Gregg Berhalter is not going to ask DeAndre Yedlin of that. We've seen that a bunch of people saying, well, you could just have DeAndre Yedlin playing as like just a stationary right back, and then have the left back go on those kind of marauding runs and stepping into the midfield and being the central midfielder. But then that kind of defeats the purpose of DeAndre Yedlin.
Because also then DeAndre Yedlin's having to play right centre back in that back three, which isn't necessarily his strong suit either.
I think the time we've seen him do that is when he got the red card for Newcastle.
Yes, he is very much a traditional right back in the sense of he can hold a defensive shape, he can hassle you, and he can overlap at pace and whip across it.
Yeah,
right. But there's not many variations in terms of him stepping into midfield or playing centre back that you can do with him.
And so I think then, like, again, it's kind
Sorry,
of...
DeAndre, if you're listening.
Well, it's kind of a weird, like, I guess, like, thought, mental experiment sort of thing. But then it's like the case that, they say, like, oh, no, we just want, like, a standard right back, and that's going to be a more traditional right back. Like, that's going to be Yedlin. But if we want, like, the right back becoming a central midfielder, well, then that's Nick Lima. Again, not a thing we would have said going into the January camp. So, again, why Nick Lima is the big winner, because now you can see a specific role where right now he is the player to do that, and I don't know who else could do it aside from maybe Tyler Adams, maybe DeAndre Yedlin. But again, those question marks indicate that a player has given Gregg Berhalter something to think about, again, in a good way.
Can we talk a little bit just about Nick Lima's style of play? Because that's the thing that really stuck out to me. I think I mentioned on the last show that he reminded me a bit, not exactly, but a bit of Dani Alves at Barcelona in his heyday. Because Dani Alves would sometimes overlap, sometimes step into midfield, and would always look capable of suddenly driving forward with the ball and playing a quick 1-2. Those are all the things I loved about Nick Lima's performance. Yeah. And then in addition to that, you've got the fact that his assist for I believe it's for the Walker Zimmerman goal, when he did the Rooney thing, essentially really well-timed, aggressive but firm slide tackle, win the ball, pop up, look up and play a perfect cross. That's the other thing, is that, like, if you think of him getting forward and getting crosses in a more Gary Neville-ish type right back role. I mean, it looked to me like his crosses were of high quality, which is another string to his bow.
Yeah, and I think you even said this. Like, we had talked about right backs, and we were looking at like Sergiño Dest as the possible future right back.
We still are.
And for a lot of the reasons that we are excited is what Nick Lima did when he came in and played for the national team. Yeah. So there's an element of like, oh, well, he can kind of already do that. I would say Sergiño Dest probably has more of an upside, given that he's playing for Ajax. But it is still a reminder of like, oh yeah, that is a position that we used to consider a strength. Steve Cherundolo could do all of the things that you've been talking about.
Oh,
and now
missing.
we have 2 potential players who could maybe do the same.
Oh, okay, I've got a not winner.
All right.
One not winner is tactical shapes expressed through numbers. That's been blown up, right? You cannot now say the US plays this shape in one number because defending, it was a 4-4-2. Initially with the ball, it's a 4-3-3 or 4-1-4-1, as you mentioned earlier. Once we pass halfway, it becomes a 3-2-2-3 or 3-2-4-1 or maybe even a WM. There are essentially 3 different shapes happening at once for the US national team, and I pity the fool that has to turn that into a pre-match graphic for ESPN or Fox or anyone else.
I mean, I think they'll probably just do it's a 4-3-3. Just leave it at that and we'll figure it out once we need to.
Isn't it time, though, to have the moving graphic?
How would you do that?
You would just have the thing appear on the screen, maybe in the defensive 4-4-2, then shift to the 4-3-3, then go to the 3-2-4-1. You just have like an animated graphic and the players move around the field as the ball progresses up.
I understand why you think that would be a good idea because you're English and like you do a podcast about soccer.
Yeah.
But I just imagine any neutral turning on, seeing the starting 11 and watching that happen and be like, oh, it's this complicated? Bye-bye. like nope. I have no idea what just happened.
Bye-bye.
And that was the introduction to the starting team. Nah.
I say weed those people out. Separate the wheat from the chaff on the threshing floor, as I learned recently on the Total Soccer Show.
Sure.
We had quite a lot of tweets about that.
Yeah, we did. From America's heartland.
Yes.
Since you've gone, negative as you are so wont to do.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'll stay in the positive category. Sebastien Lletget would be the other big winner.
Yes.
For me. Didn't start, but he is clearly a number 10 option going forward for the U.S. I think there's a chance that he is, like right now, the number 10 coming out of this camp. As in amongst these players, I think that he may, if Gregg Berhalter had to start one more friendly, I think maybe Lletget starts that one over Djordje Mihailovic. I know he said that Lletget had struggled to deal with it a little bit.
Yeah, so essentially, this is Scuffed retweeted a bit of the Gregg Berhalter press conference. I just want to give credit where I saw this. Essentially, in the press conference, Berhalter was asked, Lletget was so good when he came on each time, so productive. Why didn't he start, right? And Berhalter's answer was Lletget was a little slower understanding the system and the setup and the tactics, whereas Mihailovic and Roldan kind of just had it down a bit faster. And that's the reason why Lletget was brought into the game later.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting, right? Because I think there's a very simple way of looking at soccer of like, this guy did good, this guy should have started. Whereas Berhalter has his reasons why Lletget was held back a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe that is just as simple as when the game starts, it's 0-0, we're trying to figure out what the other team is doing. There's a little bit more required of a central midfielder when we're chasing the game or trying to go for that winning goal, and now it's just, like make stuff happen, play direct passes, be decisive. Maybe that's where Lletget shines a little bit more.
Or it's just like the guys that understand the system start the game so that the system is in effect, and then when Lletget enters, the system is already in effect, and it's like dropping someone into a thing that's already working, as opposed to letting him break it from the start.
Yeah, and so then let me rephrase, let me adjust what I said earlier, which is that maybe Lletget isn't even like the number 10. Maybe he doesn't start the next game, but I think Gregg Berhalter now knows.
It's Andrew Carlton, right?
Yeah, of course. Gregg Berhalter now knows that Lletget can be that number 10 super sub. He can be that kind of creative midfielder substitute. Again, that is an improvement. That is a positive response because now if you're looking at a full national team and you're the number 2 playmaker or the number 3 playmaker, you're still in that squad. You're still in that main grouping of players, which is where you want to be if you want to keep getting caps. Okay,
then on a similar topic, I have got 3 tentative winners.
Sorry, and I just want to add because I haven't talked about as much of Lletget as I thought I would, but I just want to add that that's a guy who I'm not a Galaxy fan. I know his story of breaking the ankle and the sadness there.
Qualification for the World Cup could have gone maybe differently if Arena had Lletget.
Yeah, but it's still not one that I remember the first time I heard his name. I think was on
West Ham when he was there.
No, it was you talking about him when he had his kind of breakout season with the Galaxy. You were interviewing maybe somebody from Corner of the Galaxy.
Yes.
And I just go, who's this guy? Because then I remember Googling his name and not getting it right when I first tried to spell it.
You're probably not the only one.
Yeah, but so to go from
are you trying to spell legume?
I don't know. I tweeted this the other day. Google Drive keeps correcting players' names to the correct spelling, so things have changed. But I say all that just to say that, but he wasn't one who I was kind of like, oh, Legette's not there. Oh, shoot, Leggette. And when he was, I wasn't like, yay, Legette's there. Yeah. And I think now I will be that a little bit more because I really enjoy what he brought to the table.
I want to see him play for the Galaxy as well.
That would also be nice.
Get him on that field.
Another player who we want to see get on the field in MLS this season, I'm going to guess for both of us, Jonathan Lewis.
Yes.
Let's get him some minutes, shall we?
Let's get Jonathan Lewis in a second, though, because since we talked about Leggette, I want to give you my list of 3 tentative winners.
Okay.
I'm not willing to go all in on super winners on all of them, and Legette's one of them, and it's all the attacking midfielders, essentially. So Leggette we just talked about, and maybe one of the reasons he's tentative is that Berhalter literally said he didn't quite get the system.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll move him into the winners column. I think you've convinced me. But then we've got to talk Georgi Mihailovic and Christian Roldan.
Yep.
And here's what I saw from these two guys. Georgi Mihailovic, in the winner column, scored the first goal of the Gregg Berhalter era. Had some great moments. Found space really well. I feel like he kept making himself available. Had some exciting moments. Remember, like the back heel against Costa Rica, tried to get things going. But overall, we saw a guy that looked like wasn't quite ready. He was ready to get in the positions to receive the ball in dangerous areas, but wasn't quite ready to hit the killer pass every time in a way that makes him super, super dangerous. So it was more like a promising January, and we heard good things about him in camp, right? So it's like a promising January that then didn't quite deliver on maybe when Tenorio first told us, I've heard Mihailovic is killing it in camp, didn't quite deliver on what we hoped for, right? Yeah. But again, he's only played a certain amount of soccer. He had that whole year out with the ACL injury. So there's promise there for the future.
Yeah, that's one. I shouldn't, I don't know, I'm sure there's plenty of examples. But this is one where I feel like I let the hype get to me a little bit. And so, whereas with other players, if I'm like, oh yeah, they were excited to be included and now they will continue to be, so that's a win. Mihailovic is probably in that category. He'll still get looks. Gregg Berhalter will still be watching him. But I think because I had this idea of maybe he can be that number 10. Maybe he can be that creative player. I watched a bunch of footage and I was like, yeah, I could see how that would work. I just kind of thought it would look a little bit better. And so that at times it didn't, especially in that first half against Costa Rica. I know he then had a better second half against Costa Rica, but
he
still.
Did. Those 15, 20 minutes he was on to begin with, he did start connecting some passes. So at least
he didn't put one wrong. There you go.
Is that right? Was it 100%
in the second
completion?
half? Yeah.
There we go.
He went 8 for 8, I think. But I think it was the case though that maybe I let that expectation get to me, because looking back on it, and I think maybe I talked to Travis about this after talking to Travis about this. Yeah, Travis on the Top Drawer Soccer Show was about how I really liked how Georgi Mihailovic could, under pressure, he would get the ball from one channel, he could receive it and turn and play it wide again, and how he was really good at keeping the ball moving. But in retrospect, I never said, and I really like how sometimes he'll turn and try to go at people, or how he'll turn and try to play somebody through. Yeah. He did it a couple times in the footage that I saw, but it definitely wasn't the strongest part of his game. Yeah. And I think it that much was demonstrated in these two friendlies.
And the big criticism I've heard elsewhere is the lack of the half turn.
Yeah.
Meaning he's receiving it and not being able to receive and turn, so he's facing goal and ready to make that killer pass. Mm-hmm. It's more like he's receiving it, and then probably the reason he's playing it wide is because that's the direction the defender's forcing him to face.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is maybe the most generic.
And sometimes it's going out of bounds. Or it's a misconnected pass.
So that's the thing. And I know this sounds incredibly, almost like I didn't watch these games when I say this.
You definitely did. I was next to you for
There
one
you
of
go.
them. Yeah.
Here is my summary of Georgi Mihailovic and why I have him in the uncertain category as well. Or I'm not quite sure. Is because he was good, he was occasionally great, and then he was occasionally not great. And the question I have then is, were his good moments good enough to justify Gregg Berhalter continuing to look at him and be like, yeah, that was good enough, we'll develop him here? Or were his bad moments so bad at times that Gregg Berhalter was like, I can't afford to have that sort of liability, so maybe he falls further down the pecking order?
Here's my answer, and my guess, and I'm really confident in this, is the fact that he came into camp and was then deemed impressive enough to start games. The evidence of the games is the only evidence that we've seen, but it's not the only evidence, right?
Very
Gregg Berhalter has a much bigger body of Georgi Mihailovic work to look at than we do, a bigger data set. And then also add in the fact that he's only 20 and he's about to, Chicago Fire do not have a lot of players right now. He's about to start a lot for Chicago Fire. He has to, right? Because there's almost no one else.
All right, I'm going to upgrade him to winner-ish then.
Okay. So winner-ish Leggette, winner-ish Mihailovic.
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. The other midfielder I want to talk about is Christian Roldan.
Should we do that now, or should we do that after a word from another sponsor?
Let's do that now, just to complete the set of those number 8s, number 10s that we talked about. Christian Roldan, I thought, was sort of busier than anybody else. Like he was good at, again, making himself available in the space that opened up when things pulled wide. He also did a bit more defensive work. I felt like maybe he was a little less of an attacking midfielder than, say, Mihailovic and Leggett were. You know what I mean? The roles were slightly differentiated. But again, he didn't quite have the finished product. You remember? I mean, literally the ball, was it Zardes flicked it up to him, either intentionally or not, and Roldan just took a weird angle. He'd run a long way to get there, but put it wide and then
clubbed it, basically,
clubbed
instead of hitting it.
Looked distraught. I don't remember Roldan playing like... again, same as Mihailovic, I don't remember him playing a killer pass that set someone through on goal. So a lot of good work, and he understood the spacing, he understood the system, but he didn't quite produce in the way, definitely not in a way that's going to put him ahead of a Weston McKennie or one of these senior European figures coming back.
Agreed. And I would say maybe not even ahead of like some of the players who subbed in for him in this game or some of the other players who were playing in midfield. So I'm with you on that. And then I think it's a case where like I remember those lows. I remember that shot wide. I remember a few passes.
Remember the look on his face as well afterwards, right? There's an unfortunate close-up.
And I remember those passes out of bounds. But maybe that's where the actual manager is looking at that and doesn't care about those sort of moments that the crowd remembers. He's looking and thinking, but he made that 80-yard run to get himself in position. That's all I can ask of him in that mode. And so maybe there is that for Gregg Berhalter. They're kind of like maybe Roldan did what was asked, and we just remember those negative moments. But that said, like those do still stand out to me, and that's why I have him in that category of like he didn't necessarily hurt himself, but I'm not sure he really like move that standing up to that next level of like, oh yeah, Christian Roldan definitely in there. Put it this way, Marky Delgado I think was in this squad, even though he wasn't in the matchday roster. And with that said, I'm still like, but there maybe are some questions going forward about like, well, should we give Marky Delgado one more chance to see if like he can do what Christian Roldan can't?
Yep.
I know a lot of people would say Roldan has already cemented that this can't prove that, but I still have question marks, which is why I don't put him maybe as highly as other people might.
Bonus thing for Christian Roldan before we move on to the ad is his versatility. We've seen him play everywhere except goalkeeper for Seattle Sounders. I would say Christian Roldan could play that Nick Lima role.
Okay.
Because I've seen him play right back, I've seen him play right wing, I've seen him play centre midfield. So as long as he understands the system, Christian Roldan's a possibility. Christian Roldan's maybe a possibility for that wide right role. I think so. He's maybe a possibility for a deeper midfielder. I think even if he gets squeezed out of the attacking midfield spot, and I'd argue maybe he should because he's not quite as ruthless, efficient, productive in terms of attacking when you compared to like a Christian Pulisic or something like that. There still may be. I'm just like thought experiment. There still may be another role for him to play within a Gregg Berhalter system.
Well, here's my question then, because I don't want this to sound like hypocritical in saying like, well, he's giving Gregg Berhalter things to think about and giving him options, so that's a good thing. But here, like, it feels like a lot of what you're saying is like, well, maybe he could do that, and he might be able to do that, and maybe that. But it doesn't sound like that's necessarily informed by like he did this stuff really well, and that seems like it lends itself to him playing this position. That feels like, well, he seems versatile, and it seems like he can do stuff. Well, so maybe he could do that.
My argument is that he did everything except have like a ruthless attacking streak. So maybe you don't make him your sort of go-to attacking midfielder or someone you're going to rely on to create goals. But if he's someone who understands the system and is competitive and wins tackles, which is a thing he did a lot as well, maybe he's more suited to, say, the right-back role, as an example.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
we don't have to decide this now. I'm just putting it out there.
All right. So where did you have him then?
Where did I have him?
Yeah.
As a tentative winner alongside Leggett and Mihailovic.
Okay.
They were my set of tentative winners.
I'm just going to say he's tentative. I don't know. It could be tentative winner, it could be tentative loser. I guess we'll have to see with future camps.
All right, we've got lots more winners and not winners to get to.
We sure do.
But first, today's show is sponsored by Robinhood, not the guy from Nottingham. It's an investing app. Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. You will not be paying commission when you use Robinhood.
And this is not Robin the Hood, as Daryl said. Robinhood, all one word.
Robin the Hood?
Yeah, I think that's what he was.
Is that how he got his name?
Robin the Hood, not robbing. But it wasn't because his name is Robin of Locksley.
Yes.
So I think that's like because he wore the hood.
Yeah.
So it was like Robin the Hood.
Is he real or not? I'm always confused about this.
I don't know. Probably not. Who knows? And if he was, I'm sure it didn't quite go down the way it's been said.
And was he really a fox?
That is true. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
of course. While other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade, Robinhood doesn't charge any commission fees, so you can trade stocks and keep all your profits.
No account minimum deposit. So if you're a billionaire, good for you. If you're not, you can also use the Robinhood app to do some investing without worrying about keeping like a minimum amount in there.
Yeah.
I think that copy point is aimed more at me.
I do like the idea. I do like the idea though of like being able to like buy into national team players, not even in terms of like third party ownership. I just mean I like the idea of being able to like literally buy your spot on the hype train. So you can be like, hey, I was here first. I was here when this only cost $1.
That should be a thing. Which player would you be buying some stock in right now? Assuming you're trying to get in low, so you could maybe sell high at some point, which is about the extent of my knowledge about stocks, but I think is accurate.
Maybe it's Aaron Long because still young, still has the opportunity to get another chance.
Should have been in last year,
and maybe Zach Steffen, even though he's already gotten the move to Man City. Yeah. But I feel like that's probably tough because once he's already gotten that move, it's tough to see him go for like now $75 million to another team.
Maybe get Nick Lima stock before the markets update.
Yeah, that could be. That's a good one. Nick Lima's a good shout. Anybody else you think? I think Georgi Mihailovic would make sense too.
Yes, especially if people are down on him.
Yeah.
Because there was some criticism as well. Yeah, Georgi Mihailovic might be a good buy. Yeah.
There we go. So with Robinhood, you can learn how to invest in the market as you build your portfolio, discover new stocks, track your favorite companies, get custom notifications for price movements so you never miss the right time to invest. See, if you had Robinhood and it were for players, maybe you would have known to invest in Aaron Long last year.
You think a photo of Aaron Long would just come up on my app? I'm not sure that's how Robinhood
Before
works.
He gets the $80 haircut that means he's made it, which is what he was sporting for this game.
So is that right?
Yeah.
So if you are interested in starting investing, starting building your portfolio, Robinhood is a good way to go. And Robinhood is also giving listeners to the Total Stock Show a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help you start building your portfolio. You got to go to soccer.robinhood.com to sign up. That's soccer.robinhood.com, and that's how you will get your free stock.
All right. So thank you to Robinhood for sponsoring today's episode. Daryl Grove, I'm going to take us back to winners. I mentioned this player earlier when we're talking about winners and not winners coming out of the January camp.
Winners and not winners.
Winners and not winners. Let's talk Jonathan Lewis.
Yes, let's do it. Yes.
He's one who, when we had our, why didn't people talk more about him, I particularly was a little bit dismissive of his assist in that first game because it was...
Ramirez?
Yeah, because it was late in the game and it was substitutes and it was after stuff had already happened. But when you combine that with his his second assist against his second assist overall, his first of the game against Costa Rica.
And if you want a long, detailed explanation of that assist, I really recommend going and listening to our show about that because he did a lot of interesting things, including, just to give a quick summary, we think maybe he tricked that defender into thinking he was right-footed.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think he did. But I just think that when it goes from he got an assist near the end of the game when it was already kind of out of reach for Panama, that's great. But then when he does it again against Costa Rica, suddenly it's like, ooh, no, maybe now he's just the guy you can bring in to go at people, dribble at people, cause problems, get crosses, maybe get a shot or two, but either way, create difficulties for an opponent. That stock has gone up.
Here's what I really like about him as well. You get with a lot of young wingers the ability to go past people, right? And as well as the assist, Jonathan Lewis he left a couple of guys for dead, right? He burned them like Daenerys' dragons burn people.
Yep.
Like the loot train, I want to say.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well,
you know how mad people get about this. Yeah. I couldn't believe how much you didn't watch the Super Bowl, right?
The what?
There you go. There was stuff revealed in the Super Bowl ads that I was like, that people who are not caught up are going to be like, wait, what happened now?
Yeah.
Who is this?
I heard they also desecrated Jeff Lebowski.
Yeah, that happened too.
Yeah.
That happened too.
So what I was going to say is often with young wingers, you get a lot of dribbling past people.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Lewis did do that because there was some real highlight going past people moments. What you don't get is precision crosses. And this goal for Sebastian Lletget especially is a precision bent cross to the far post. Basically lands on Lletget's head, right? It's perfectly timed, perfectly crossed. That's why I'm really excited about Jonathan Lewis. I've just realized I've kind of hijacked your point because you were having him as a winner.
No, it's all good. I mean, we can both have him. It's fine.
All right.
But I would also add this, that he's been in the scouting network for a while, the TSS scouting network. And he's one that, occasionally when a young player isn't getting minutes, Daryl will have a reaction, and I'll just sort of be like, yeah, that's kind of standard. That's the way it goes.
That's what's happening, right?
And I think with Jonathan Lewis, it's telling to me that, going into this camp, I was like, oh, yeah, he's the guy who didn't get many minutes with NYCFC, and maybe that'll be different.
Some time with Louisville, right, if I remember?
Yeah, you got it. And now coming out of this camp, it's more like, yeah, he's the guy who doesn't get minutes with NYCFC, and that better change this season. I genuinely now will be tracking and caring and being annoyed if he doesn't get minutes, and I think there are other clubs out there who will happily give him those minutes if New York don't want to. So, again, that to me is a win where it goes from that's kind of how it is to that better not be how it is. That means he's done some stuff that made me change my mind.
I'm going to underline something for you that you may have forgotten because it happened a long time ago. Jonathan Lewis was not in the camp to begin with. Jonathan Lewis was called in as, I believe, a replacement after Greg Garza dropped out with injury. So when Berhalter did his first 20-something names, Lewis was probably just on the outside. He probably just missed out. He was in the relegation zone. So this could have not happened at all. Instead, he's in there, not many minutes, but 2 assists. And I think he already has a weird role as US men's national team super sub, which maybe he'd prefer to start, but that's better than my US men's national team role. So, and better than Jonathan Lewis's previous US men's national team role.
Yeah, I mean, that he even has a role?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Means good stuff.
Yeah. And also, I think people are just pumped to watch him now, right? So I feel like now, like we'd been talking about him, Scouting Network and all that sort of stuff. I think now he's on the radar. It's like his coming out party. He's on the radar of a much wider array of fans.
Yep.
There's going to be more pressure on NYCFC to play him. When he does play, I think US national team fans are going to be watching, thinking, "Oh, that's our guy. Yeah. Let me see him do stuff for NYCFC."
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know.
Hooligans will be excited as well.
They will. They have been, and we'll tell you that, a long time ago. But I think like going into this camp, like we maybe it's just because of the way things were heading into the January camp and the fact that there hadn't been a permanent manager named and the disappointment, the recent unpleasantness that maybe coming out, it feels like more people care, but it does feel like I go back to when the Panama game happened and people were sort of like, yeah, but how many of these guys are going to be in the actual starting 11, and is Jonathan Lewis ever going to get a chance again? And I do think, to your point, that there will be like casual Major League Soccer fans who will now maybe want to watch an NYCFC game because Jonathan Lewis is there. And that, again, is a sign that things are maybe improving a little bit, or that interest is there when it wasn't before.
Yep. You can also watch Keaton Parks while you're at it.
Also that.
So that could be fun. All right, things have been a little too optimistic, so let's go with a not winner.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I think we have to classify Jassy Zardes as a not winner.
I have him in my uncertain, but I'm willing to go with you into negative.
Here's my explanation for it. He did do a lot of off-the-ball work. He did some hold-up playing connections, but it wasn't always clean. I'm thinking specifically, remember that one sort of ball that he squared and it was behind Corey Baird and the attack kind of faltered. But I think the biggest thing is that I don't want him to become the scapegoat, because I mentioned that on the last show, right? That I'm worried that there's always one player that everybody wants off the team. I don't want that to be Jassy Zardes. But going into this camp, Gregg Berhalter knew him from a whole season at Columbus, right? He probably showed Gregg Berhalter exactly what Gregg Berhalter wanted in practice, and maybe even in terms of non-goal scoring centre-forward play, showed what Berhalter wanted within the 2 games, right? I would say the evidence of that is that even though he didn't score in the first game, he still started the second game. Berhalter maybe thought it was more important team-wide. The same as Leggett not starting. Zardes starting is important for the system working. But for fans and media and pundits and everybody else, the fact that Jassy Zardes did not score and had a couple of what I would call high-profile misses, the header over the bar, the second chance shot that he put also over the bar, and the fact that there are lots more forwards to come and add to the pile, I think you have to classify this as a not-winner camp for Jassy Zardes. Because there's another version of this where he does all the hold-up play, looks a bit smoother, scores a couple goals over these friendlies, and then when the full squad is picked in March, he could have maybe expected to have been competing with Altidore, Woods, Sargent, and the other guys. I think it has to be said he's a not winner because he didn't do that, and therefore he probably won't be.
Yeah, and I think to go from starting both games to because Christian Ramirez scored and had the flick, I have Christian Ramirez as one that like I'm uncertain about. Probably, if I had to, would put in the winners because he at least there is more of a conversation. Like, I know he got his cap and it was nice to see him, but that'll be that.
Yeah.
Like maybe he still gets talked about a little bit, but I think the fact that now it is like, well, if you're going to bring a forward in from this camp, is it Ramirez or Zardes? That probably means that Jassy Zardes, at least to me, not being Gregg Berhalter, to me the outside pundit would say like, yeah, then he probably didn't have nearly as strong as a camp as he would have liked.
And it still could be Zardes because he just knows the system better. But Ramirez definitely strengthened his case, whereas Zardes didn't, right?
Yeah, and I find myself, I don't know why, I feel slightly disappointed about that. I think it's because when the move happened that sent him to Columbus in the first place, I think the overwhelming reaction was like, wow, that is not the same. Like, you're going to lose Ola Kamara and bring in Jassy Zardes, and you think that makes sense? And then he scores quickly. He scored often. He had, I think, the top American goal scorer in MLS last season, I believe. Like, so that it went really well for him. I think I kind of had this idea of like, well, it's Gregg Berhalter. It went well for him when he had this adversity before, so maybe Gregg Berhalter with the national team and a lot of people looking at him critically, maybe he'll respond, and that it feels like he didn't respond as obviously as we would have liked. Yeah. Yes, made smart runs. Yes, could be physical on occasion, but no, overall didn't have that big impact that maybe he would have been hoping for.
Should we say Christian Ramirez is a winner just in terms of categorization, just because he did the most possible with the very few minutes that he got?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I would argue for the flick on for the goal against Costa Rica, for the second goal against Costa Rica, that is more important to me than the goal he actually scored. For him, I'm sure he'll want the goal. Yeah. He'll want to know that he scored for his country. But the flick to me was more of a that's what he's going to do.
We said it rescued the Zach Steffen kind of slice goal kick, right? And saved the play.
But it's a little bit of the like the Fellaini put somebody big up top and just see if they can, the Alan Gordon role of put somebody up there to try to get ahead on it, to try to make something happen near the end of the game, to flick it on to somebody to run onto. Maybe that's a role for him going forward. Yeah.
You got anyone else you want to talk about? I've got a couple more.
Me too. I would say in terms of winners, I'd say Paul Arriola. Yes. Probably came away better than I would have thought.
Goal scorer Paul Arriola.
Goal scorer, but not just that goal is very good for a variety of reasons. It's very pretty with the flick on, and then the ball, the one-time ball or two-touch ball from Leggett, I forget. But the ability to chase that ball down from Paul Arriola, then still deftly lift it over the keeper and make sure it goes in. That's all very, very good. Don't get me wrong. But it's his ability or willingness to take people on. To your point earlier, you don't have the overlapping fullbacks out wide. So if on occasion the winger does get it, it is sort of a let me see if I can beat you to the touchline and cross it in, or let me see if I can cut it back in and recycle possession. And Arriola was one of the few wingers who got a start, in my mind, who went at people, who wanted to try something, who was willing to do a few step-overs and take somebody on 1v1. And if it didn't work, it didn't work because he wasn't always trying to do that. But the willingness to do it and the fact that he scored and looked like he could be a dynamic worker for the U.S., all of that to me means winner.
He also appeared to understand what was asked of him within the system. So I know he didn't start the first game. Jeremy Abobasi did. Thank you to Wes Bodine, by the way, for the correct pronunciation. But Arriola started the second game, and it looked like he was part of the tactical solution in the second half when they kept finding balls wide. It was Arriola who looked the most dangerous, right? He managed to pull wide and receive those passes and look super dangerous. So a guy who understood the system, understood the adjustment that was asked of him. It's a slight adjustment, but it was the thing that hurt Costa Rica, and got on the score sheet. That's a triple win for Paul Arriola.
Yeah. Agreed entirely. And we probably should have said this in the very beginning. Being a winner, I bet we've already gotten a tweet about this. Us saying,
we haven't published the show yet.
But by the time I'm saying this within the show, good point. Just because we're saying they can be considered a winner coming out of a camp, winner in this case does not imply and therefore will be in the next camp for sure. Not what we're saying. But in terms of if you're a winner or a not winner, that's what we're going with.
All we guarantee is that you get a chicken dinner.
Yes, exactly. Courtesy of Daryl Grove. He'll pay for it out of pocket, not using the TSS card. But I think there are a few who maybe we will expect to see in the next senior camp, and maybe a few that we wouldn't have expected to see but now will. But I just want to make it clear that we're not saying and so Paul Arriola, guaranteed starter from now on.
Captain forever.
Of course.
Okay, I've got
that doesn't work in U.S. history, so let's not do that here.
Similar position to Paul Arriola. But I've just gone with uncategorizable, but leaning towards not winner, Corey Baird.
Okay.
So, unproductive, right? Corey Baird, the negatives are, Corey Baird I thought was unproductive. He had the one assist, right? So maybe a bit of production there. But on the whole, there were a lot of Corey Baird gets the ball wide and either A, runs at a player, loses the ball. Maybe wins a throw-in, but mostly does not get past his fullback.
And I would say didn't run at that many people. I felt was a little bit more hesitant than I would have liked to see, which is why Arriola stands out to me.
Yep. And even if he did get to the end line, his crossing was not wonderful. It often hit the shins or the head of the first defender he crossed it into, which is understandable in a way because he's really a centre forward who's been asked to play wide, right? But similar to what we talked about with Zardes and with Leggett not starting, my understanding is that Gregg Berhalter really likes the way that Corey Baird implemented the tactics, right? Which is to be narrow sometimes in the defensive 4-4-2, to pull wide when the US goes forward to make sure you stretch out the opposition. So again, he was valued for his ability to follow the instructions correctly and make the system work, but not so valued for what he did when he got the ball.
Yes.
Fair?
It is.
And that's why I'm very confused about Corey Baird.
Yeah, and I think, and it's especially confusing because other people out there have said, like, he had a great camp, and he did things that other people didn't do, and he had a strong performance. And where it came down to for me, it's similar to Daniel Lovitz, actually, because Lovitz is one who I wasn't quite sure what to make of, and really this was the, like, determinant factor for me, is that I didn't read more about either one of them. That with a few other, like, Georgi Mihailovic, I went and read his, like, Wikipedia page, and I was like, oh, wait, what's this story about? And I read about that story. And there's a few others that I, like, wanted to learn more about, Aaron Long being one. I went back and read more about Walker Zimmerman, who's one that I had kind of dismissed after seeing him in the national team iterations past.
I assume things have just improved for Zimmerman because he's playing for Bob Bradley.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yes, and not playing for other coaches, and we'll leave it at that. But Baird and Lovitz were both two who I was like, yeah, they're fine. But, like, I didn't feel the need to learn more about them. And again, that is not, like, this is not, you know, like, measured by science here, this analysis. It's just a thing that I realized after the fact that I was like, ooh, should I go read more about Corey Baird? Nah, I feel like I've read enough. I'm okay with that.
Okay, I've got another not winner for you. It is Jurgen Klinsmann and Bruce Arena.
Yep.
So after seeing a US team play with what I would call a proper tactician who has systems and tactical wrinkles and styles of play and really specific instructions for players that they look thrilled to carry out, it makes everything since 2011 look a little uncoordinated and, I'm going to say, old-fashioned. Like, Berhalter, he is not Pep Guardiola, but he is from that school of coaches that goes super detailed and likes to have, like, a really big plan that you can get into minute details on, right? Berhalter is more in that mold than what I would call a more old-fashioned type of get the basic organization right and the rest takes care of itself coach like Bruce Arena. We were maybe a little too positive about him when he first took over, but what I've seen in hindsight is essentially it's not a detailed plan. It's just the basics are right and then hopefully the rest takes care of itself. And Jurgen Klinsmann, where it's essentially all just motivation and hoping that that's enough. That's not enough anymore, right? You have to have a kind of detailed tactical setup, and now the US has that. And I think it makes Klinsmann and Arena look worse in hindsight.
Yeah, and I would like, and again, another like kind of intangible but thing that stands out to me is I think about like Bruce Arena taking over. What, like, wasn't his first camp the January camp when he took over the second time around?
The second time around, yes.
Yeah. And so like I think about him like doing some of those like weird hostage up against a gray wall like Q&As that he did for US Soccer when he took over.
You mean when he was on Fox Sports?
Yeah, not even those. But when he first took over US Soccer, he was like doing Q&As in a cubicle.
Yeah.
And it is his delivery, it is his affect, but it was just a lot like you could just hear like I don't want to be here.
Yeah,
like it was just like why didn't we call him Bobby Wood because he plays in Europe? I don't know. Next question. Yeah, we're gonna do it. Like it just felt like that sort of like
someone get me some coffee.
Yeah, it would, or just the like Marshawn Lynch, like I'm here so I don't get fined.
Yeah.
And Jurgen Klinsmann, I think about January.
I'm here so I don't get fired.
Yeah, perfect. I'm here because Jurgen Klinsmann did get fired, I guess. And then Klinsmann, like there was the one where it was like, oh, I'm tired of MLS offseason being so long, and all these guys are out of shape, and there's not the heart, and it just like January camp is so readily a negative thing. It's like think about
Bruce Arena invent it. I feel like he invented it.
2002. Yeah,
I thought he took over in '98 and did it.
It was 2002 was the first January camp because it was, or at least it was the most effective one. I think that was the premise of like Doyle's article. Was that
because the Gold Cup was in the winter?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident Arena instituted January camp as like a post Steve Sampson. No, because the '98 World Cup would have been January '98, maybe '99. I'm gonna bet money on 99.
Make sure, just keep talking.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
Send those tweets. I'm not scared.
All of that is to say that I feel like there's never that much enthusiasm around the January camp.
Yes.
It is oftentimes very like, oh, yeah, it's MLS. It doesn't really matter. Oh, it's a inferior opponent. We're playing Serbia's C team or Bosnia's B team. And so there's never that much enthusiasm, that much excitement coming out of it. It's always kind of tempered by expectation, and we'll see what happens next.
Yeah.
And just that, like, Berhalter seems to have cared so much and tried to put so much effort in and answered questions in a way that maybe other coaches haven't and been a little bit more transparent in a way that coaches haven't. It feels like it's a more optimistic, I guess, exit from the January window than we've seen in the past.
For Berhalter's enthusiasm to talk tactics, do you think maybe it's like when you first start a new job? I know neither of us have done that in a while, but when you first start a new job, you know how you're super enthusiastic.
The new broom sweeps clean.
Yeah, well, but you're like, you just do everything. You'll make coffee for everybody, and you're just the new guy who's just like looking to please everybody. And I wonder if as we go, he'll get a bit more cynical, or if he'll be happy to talk tactics going forward.
I appreciate you bringing that up because that was where I wanted to end. Like that last thought, and I kind of lost it for a moment, was that like I don't think he is. I don't think it is, because you could just say like, oh yeah, those guys had been there for a while. It was Bruce Arena's second go around. So like this is Gregg Berhalter's first, but like is he this enthusiastic with the next January or the next one after? And it does feel like her personality, and it goes back to your point about like being a little bit younger and embracing different ideas. It feels like he's always going to see like, no, but this time I can try to play with a back two and see if that works. Like I do get the impression that there will always be that level of intensity and enthusiasm to coaching the national team from Gregg Berhalter, and that again gives me a little bit more optimism than I would have thought.
Okay,
maybe we're just like plants that have been kept in the basement and are starving for sunlight, and we finally got to sit in the window for like 2 minutes.
I think it is a little bit of that. I've got as one of my big winners the very concept of January camp.
We go.
Yeah. I'm sort of repeating what you just said, which is that there were questions about, do we even need to keep doing this? The evidence of the last month is that absolutely we need to keep doing this. Not just because, one, the games were entertaining. Like they were worth watching, which is often the biggest criticism, is that it usually ends with a really horrible 0-0 draw with Canada that like everybody's eyes bleed when you watch it. Instead, watching the US ping the ball around against Panama and Costa Rica, score 5 goals over 2 games, concede 0, it was enjoyable. It was an enjoyable experience to watch these games, right? Then the other element is that there is no doubt in my mind, or I don't think anyone's mind, that the 3 weeks or whatever it was in camp were useful in terms of Gregg Berhalter implementing his style with this group of players. So all that stuff, it wasn't just like running wind sprints just for fun. It was really, really useful tactically. And then a really interesting thing that I think I've read a couple of places to the point where I think maybe Berhalter has told this to reporters in a weird, like off-the-record kind of way. The 3 weeks that they spent teaching this, admittedly B-team set of players how to play the system, Berhalter and Wolf and all the other coaches have learned what's effective in communicating their style to new players and what isn't. So that when we get to, say, March and you only have a very limited amount of time before the first game, it'll be more like a streamlined, efficient, more useful version of laying out these new tactics. It's like they got a practice run at introducing new players to the tactical system so it can go even better next time in a shorter space of time.
Maybe there needs to be some like qualification or rule that if you're going to do a January camp, you have to at least do one like tactical innovation with each game. So then it keeps you having to evolve and change things and try different stuff. And it doesn't just end up being like, oh, we're doing the same thing against Canada's B team. Sigh.
Can I ask you a question I don't know the answer to? So I said after the Panama game that maybe we won't see the Nicolima right back to central midfield thing again, and then we got the exact same shape again. Do you think there's a chance that this is just going to be every single time this is what the US does?
I mean, I think there's a chance, but I think there's just as likely a chance that they don't. I think if he was trying to like see like what it took to like get people on board playing a system and then understanding that system from one game to the next, like that may have just been him trying to figure out how you best convey your instructions. Maybe he continues to try to do that with a full team, but maybe he looks at that full team and thinks like, actually we have the talent to actually be able to spread the ball and still pass through the middle without having to have that right back go forward. So I mean it's
dependent on the set of players and what suits them best,
which I think is what it's always going to be. And that's where, again, we've talked about
this
before.
He's system first, right? He's like, I choose my system and I choose the players to fit it.
Yeah, but I think he may also still be, it's early enough, and because it is the January camp still, with all the positive we said, it's still the January camp, that it could easily just be like, I would be uncomfortable if he was like, yep, it worked so well in that camp that's what we're going to do every single time from now on. I would much rather see him look at the full team and everybody that he has available and then see what works and, more importantly, what doesn't work.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I think, look, scanning down my list, I only have one more set of not winners. I've got one more winner and one not winner I wanted to discuss. Have you got any more? Okay.
I would say Zach Steffen for me is a winner.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I didn't have him. I forgot.
I would say he remains at worst near the top spot, if not is the number one. There are other options out there. We'll see. I'm guessing Brad Guzan gets called into the next camp. I'm guessing maybe Ethan Horvath does, since we expect more European-based players. Or maybe some other random goalkeepers called in just to see what happens in camp, and then maybe there are some cuts. But it still feels like Zach Steffen, Like what stands out to me on a negative is his distribution was kind of bad on occasion, specifically against Costa Rica.
Yeah.
But then you watch what the Costa Rican goalkeeper did and how he struggled with footing and struggled to kind of like move the ball quickly as well. So I don't think that's necessarily Zach Steffen specific.
There was the moment against Panama with the rollout. That, we had to try and quash that quickly.
Yeah. So there's still some issues, but I don't think we saw. No, I mean, I like Ethan Horvath, and I know he has improved, but it wasn't that, like, do you remember his, like, howler in his first
Portugal,
game? Like, there wasn't that moment of, like, ooh, that's not a good look for you. Zach Steffen.
In fact, for all the US defending that didn't let opposition through, didn't Steffen have that one really good save against Panama? Do you remember he stretched out and like knocked it around the post with his wrist?
Vaguely.
The one moment he was called on, he pulled out a wonder save.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do. So Zach Steffen, still a winner for me.
Winners for me are Total Soccer Show, Scuffed, Matt Doyle, Bobby Warshaw, Joseph Lowry, Will Parchman, Kim McCauley, Daniel Smith, USMNT Videos, Yanks Are Coming, and everybody else who likes watching the US national team for tactics and patterns and trying to break things down.
But
it's been 8 years and we haven't been able to do it. We finally get to be able to do it. Winner, chicken dinner.
But in another way, because if Bobby has to do more work and think about things, then couldn't it then be argued, Daryl, that I'm being Bobby Warshaw, couldn't it then be argued, though, that because more work has to be done, because now there's more to analyze, that maybe Bobby Warshaw is actually a loser because he now has to, like, really put more thought into it, and it's not quite as obvious as maybe it was in the past?
We prefer the term not winner.
Okay.
But no, because I think he would have tried anyway.
That was me. I wasn't trying to be Bobby. I feel like I've heard Bobby do the counterpoint on a number of occasions.
I think he would prefer to have something to dig
I would say so too.
into. My apologies to anyone who got left off that list. I wrote it really quickly. There are plenty of other good analysts out there, like Ty, final third. Lots of good people. We'll have lots to work with, hopefully, over the coming years.
Where did you have Jeremy of Portland?
Jeremy of Portland?
I'm not saying his last name anymore because we have now gotten 14 different messages at different points in the year saying this is definitively how you pronounce his name. So Jeremy of Portland, what did you make of him?
Well, he didn't get to play centre forward, which I think is unfortunate for him. He would have liked to play centre forward. He did okay at left wing, but he had that head injury kind of early and had to play, I don't know the exact minutes, but I think he had to play about half his minutes with blood coming out of his head. So I want to say not winner just in that sense that he was unfortunate to not be able to be healthy and on the field for longer. Yep. So there's an opportunity there, and he was just unfortunate to get the head injury.
All right.
Yeah. He wasn't terrible on the left wing. Yeah. He had one really nice cross. Do you remember he put a cross in that? Was it for Zardes? It possibly could have been the first goal of the Berhalter era. So, and he also, the fact that he was trusted to play out of position, that he'd understood the tactical construct so well that he was chosen to play left wing ahead of Paul Arriola to begin with.
Paul Arriola,
yes, if he's in the Sopranos, makes him a winner in a way. But then the unfortunate events with the head injury make him a not winner. So. Winner, not winner?
Yeah, I would say so. Maybe, I don't think we see him.
Medical discharge. That's what he got.
Perfect. I don't think we see him in March. I would say the same thing of a player like Christian
Ramirez. There's too many
Ramirez.
attacking players, isn't there?
Maybe if he has a strong start to the season, what is possible is that we see him called into the Gold Cup camp. And then maybe gets like that first round of group stage games because you can make the changes after the group stage. At least I believe you still can. Like maybe that's where he is. Otherwise, maybe it's like the September friendlies if things go well. But he is one who I don't have like much negative to say, but I also still don't think that was enough to justify like, yep, he's definitely going to be there in March
that feels right to me.
June if we do those friendlies.
Can I assume that you would join me in saying that Russell Canaus and Marky Delgado have to go down as not winners? Because even though they made the cut and stayed in the squad, they didn't get any minutes, which suggests
I don't think either one was on the official substitutes bench for the Costa Rica game either.
So I guess there's an asterisk here that it could be fitness related, right? They could have had calf strains or hamstring pulls or some reason why they could not be involved. From memory, Russell Canaus, who we've enjoyed watching for DC, a lot of people have been impressed with him. There was always a question of his passing range, right? And that, like maybe defensive midfielder, but maybe he can't play the Bradley or Trapp role because even though he can hit comfortably hit short passes that I've seen. Maybe he can't force the more difficult passes or play the big diagonals.
He fit the Bradley Trapp role at a time when Bradley and Trapp didn't fit that role.
Yeah.
Of like, if you want somebody who's like run around putting out fires, making big tackles, can reestablish possession, but isn't going to be the one to like necessarily split lines or anything like that, that was Russell Canals. That's why I had him in one of my like, here's an ideal starting 11.
Like in a 4-2-3-1 and he'd be next to a passing midfielder.
He may have even been my one in like a 4-1-4-1 or something like that. But yeah, I think now that role seems to have changed, not so much. So Russell Canals still number one in my heart, but not number one in Gregg Berhalter's.
But here's the other thing that worries me is Marky Delgado.
Yeah.
I have always thought of him as a guy who's very good at connecting passes, moving the ball quickly, playing out of pressure. And to me, that all sounds very like a Gregg Berhalter style player. Like I would have assumed he was an ideal type of player, and yet not in the matchday squad. Didn't make any appearances, and unless there's an injury, which there's a good chance that there's an injury, and that might explain why, because the bench wasn't full, right? So there might be just that he wasn't ready to go. But I'm at least not as excited as I thought I would be, because I thought Marky Delgado would be a perfect fit.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other names? Because I've got one more for you. We've touched on him very briefly.
I'm done. I'm surprised how many notes I had here.
This is one that I feel this is when I'm glad the show goes as long as it does, because it kind of makes me think a little bit more deeply about stuff. One of which is that, I would say with everything you've just said about Delgado, maybe Christian Roldan is definitely ahead of him, whereas before I think I had said but I could see a situation when Delgado gets minutes now.
Yes. The hierarchy's changed, right? Yeah. After January camp and 2 games, you can say the hierarchy's changed.
I wasn't sure it had, but I think I believe you on that one. Here's where I'm not sure it has. And I feel like most people, even not trying to point fingers, but you a little bit on this show, have been very dismissive of Lovitz, or just sort of he was fine. And I think I'm going to change that tune a little bit. And I feel like if we want a pure left back, I don't know if there's many other options out there right now, or there's no clear other but this guy's way ahead of him. Anthony Robinson is a good left back, but we think of him as a good left back who's very attacking and very good at counterattacking and causing problems. In terms of, and Greg Garza was in there but left injured, but even Greg Garza I think of as an attacking left back.
And he would not have played that left centre back role that Lovitz ended up being called on to do.
So in terms of having that left centre back sitting deep, staying back, doing a defensive job, there's options out there, but I'm not sure it's as Lovitz, he was fine, but he's out. I remember him making big tackles and big sliding challenges and being a good presence.
I guess a good way to think of him as a winner, and I think you're right, you've very much convinced me, because it's an obvious argument, and it's the correct argument, right, is that he was the guy on the roster, more so than Nick Lima, who everyone was just what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Or actually, to be fair, it was actually what we did the T.
What?
We didn't do your wah thing that you British folk do.
Yeah, I did it very East London. And I believe he played 90 minutes every game.
That checks out.
Definitely started and played the majority of every game. So you've got to be labelled a winner.
I would say so,
based on that criteria. Given the fact that there aren't that many left backs around as well, he's now in the left back pool.
Yeah. And let's all stop trying to make Fabian Johnson happen. While we're on that topic, but you're right to go all the way back to your point that but there's a chance that maybe
Aaron Long steals his spot.
That left back role is actually a left center back role.
Tim Ream steals that spot. He's the reason I thought of that Aaron Long thing is I've also seen Tim Ream. He's obviously a centre back. I've seen him play left back for the United States of America. I've seen Matt Beasler, I think, play left back for the United States.
I think you have.
Yeah, so that's always a possibility.
All right, I think that's everybody that I wanted to talk about, which is to say that I think we talked about everyone.
We did.
Yeah, and again,
well done, us.
And it's worth noting that the majority of the players we talked about probably would be in the winners column, which again says it's a successful camp.
Yep. Agreed.
There we are.
And just to remind everybody, the US is back in March. I want to say March 21st against Ecuador. In Orlando City.
March 24th, Ecuador in Orlando City. March 26th, Chile in Houston.
Wait, did you say 24th or 21st?
21st.
21st.
21st, 26th. The question I have that I have no answers on, maybe somebody else out there who's more connected will, is that...
Or maybe me. Put some faith in me.
In 2015, for the 2015 lead up to the Gold Cup, we did play friendlies in June. We played them, I think, away to the Netherlands and Germany. But that was I think the Gold Cup started in July in 2015. Here, the Gold Cup starting earlier, but we do have the international dates in 2019 of June 3rd to June 11th.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming the United States will still play some games there.
I remember 2017. Remember we played Ghana in the run-up, and like Dax McCarty played out of his mind. And
yeah.
So there'll definitely be a couple warm-up games.
So so then that will be the other one to keep an eye on is does he treat March as a, like, let's get all the European players, like everybody, like Alfredo Morales and Tim Ream and Danny Williams, and let's go that route.
So
and
Euro
then the June
only
one,
and no MLS.
I doubt that's what he'll do, but like I also wouldn't be surprised if there were more Europeans, like, and more like fringe Europeans, and then maybe that June
like
one is more people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
More people who are going to be in direct contention for the Gold Cup, and then those cuts happen.
This is maybe a longer debate for another day, but I would argue that given all the work that's been put in getting people to understand Berhalter ball, you would want to not exclude those people. Those people being like Michael Bradley or Will Trapp or even Jonathan Lewis at this point or Aaron Long. So I think you'll see definitely some holdovers because it would be weird to go. It would especially be weird to go all European when the games are being played here in the United States.
True.
Yeah.
Yep. So we shall see. So I guess I don't think it will be all European, but like maybe you have a few more. Like, that guy got called in the way you did this
My
game.
chance to work with this guy because this is my last chance before the Gold Cup, right? Because he kind of is last chance for call-ups.
Exactly.
Okay. We definitely talked at length about the January camp.
That we did.
Are you ready to talk some Total Soccer Show Scouting Network?
Let's do it.
Okay, we have updates from the Scouting Network. We have quite a few because I know you haven't been able to do them while I've been out of commission, shall we say, in recent weeks. Are you ready to get going?
I am, but I guess since you brought that up, I would like to just kind of like let people know this will be the last show that you're going to be on this week and maybe for a little bit after that.
It could be at least a week, maybe a little more. Yeah, so my surgery is tomorrow. No, sorry. Wednesday morning. Yeah. Sorry, I did know, I promise. Surgery is Wednesday morning. There's going to be a few days recovery time. Then there's going to be like post-surgery recovery time. I'll basically be in the office to do the Total Soccer Show or maybe remotely as soon as is realistic. Okay. I'm not going to push it, but I'm going to be available as soon as I can be.
Weirdly specific question. Do you know when your surgery is happening on Wednesday?
7:30 a.m.
7:30 a.m. All right. So people around the world, if you want to send those positive vibes, send your prayers, whatever, you can send them at 7:30 a.m. on Wednesday.
Please do.
There we go.
Thank you, Tony.
Now you'll have lots of people around there.
Yeah.
And then me at home thinking like, I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, so we will miss you, but I look forward to you having to cleanse your whole body before your surgery.
Oh, yeah. I definitely don't want to go into too many details with that. I meant to say share, but I said scare, and that's the reason.
Yeah, correct.
It's very graphic.
Nah, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. So should we get to scouting?
Yes, let's. First scouting report. Zachary Betcher is scouting Timothy Weah. Timo Weah, I think we call him now. The 18-year-old American forward on loan at Celtic from PSG. Zach says Weah bagged a goal and an assist after entering the game in the 73rd minute to help Celtic win 2-0 against St Johnstone. And if you're doing the math, that means when he came on, it was 0-0.
It was.
So Tim Weah changed the game.
Yeah, and by all accounts did, because it was like a bunkered St. Johnstone who did not want to go forward, who were really happy to get a goalless draw against Celtic, and Celtic seemed like they had run out of options. Timothy Weah comes in, ball over the top. It's a really, really good settle, and then a very smart cross across.
It's the settle especially, right, for the assist we were talking about.
Yep.
He takes it weirdly like in stride, doesn't kill it dead, but doesn't try to kill it dead. What he tries to do is almost like kill it and just leave enough momentum to roll it in front of him. And then a quick fast ball to the back post for the assist. It's really good work for Tim.
That all checks out.
Yeah. And then the goal, it's a breakaway, right? Because I think at this point St. Johnstone we're 1-0 down. I guess we'll have to actually try and play football. So it's on the breakaway. It's Weah with the ball on the breakaway. I think he plays it very wide, which stretches defenders over to, I don't know who he's played it to. I'm kind of only familiar with Tim Weah. And then he stretches himself to the back post, and then he's ready to receive the assist at the back post. And then he gives his jersey to a Celtic fan. Have you seen that video?
No, I didn't see that.
At the end of the game, takes his jersey off. Two young lads, wee lads. He goes over, gives the one lad his jersey, and the other lad hugs him. And the two young kids walk off with their arms around each other, looking like they've won the lottery.
There we go.
Absolutely brilliant scenes.
Hearts and minds, Timo Weah.
Yes.
Hearts and minds. Alan Bedford scouting Jonathan Lewis. We've talked about him. 21-year-old American winger for NYCFC. In the friendly against Costa Rica, young Mr. Lewis came on as a sub and provided the assist that allowed Sebastian Lletget to score the first and decisive U.S. goal.
Sure did. And I hope Alan gets to send us lots of scouting reports about Jonathan Lewis playing for NYCFC.
As do I.
Brian Heuser is scouting Sergino Dest, the 18-year-old American right back for Young Ajax. Brian says Dest received a straight red card and conceded a penalty that was converted in Young Ajax's 3-1 loss to FC Volendam last Monday. An FC Volendam attacker had beaten Dest and was about to receive a cross and shoot unmarked from 6 yards out when Dest dove and shoved him to the ground from behind. It was a poor decision by Dest, who otherwise has been putting in solid performances for Young Ajax since the holiday break. And for those who don't know, this is happening in the second tier of Dutch football. That's where Young Ajax play.
I just picture the medieval knight from Indiana Jones and Last Crusade just sitting there shaking his head like, you chose poorly.
You chose poorly on that one. Not the Dest decision.
No, there we go. I will miss those. Ian Shank scouting Fernando Arce Jr., the 22-year-old American midfielder on loan at Dorados de Sinaloa from Club Tijuana. Fernando Arce Jr. scored without looking like he even knew it. Breaking up the clean sheet in Dorados' road loss to Potros, Arce tried a near-post run on a corner in added time. He got spun around with his back to goal, but the ball then bounced off of him and into the net. It didn't even get much of a reaction from Diego Maradona, who was sitting on the bench, but a goal's a goal.
There could be other reasons why Maradona's not reacting to things. Scott Little is scouting Nicolas Chiapacasa, the 20-year-old Uruguayan striker for Rayo Majadahonda.
I'm so happy you got this one.
I think it was uncertain but correct. Scott says, Nico, thank you, has been participating in the CONMEBOL Sudamericano Sub-20 tournament with Uruguay. Nico started 3 and played in all 4 group stage games, scoring 2, including the game winner against Paraguay, which sent Uruguay through to the final stage. Go on, Nicolas Chiapacasa.
Michael Russell scouting Christian Bielik, the 21-year-old Polish centre-back / defensive midfielder on loan at Charlton from Arsenal. Some recent statistical analysis by Blade Analytics show that Christian Bielik is one of the best performing midfielders in League One this season. However, he recently suffered a rather low blow when Charlton scored in the 93rd minute against Accrington Stanley. Players and fans rushed onto the field to celebrate, and one fan slipped with his feet flying into the air, hitting Bielik right where he wouldn't want to be kicked. Michael says it's a strange situation given that athletic supporters are supposed to hold your junk in place.
That's a good joke. I think I've also seen this footage. Then, I didn't realize it was Bielik at the time.
Targeted.
Ouch.
Targeted. Ryan
Marzak is scouting Pione Sisto, the 23-year-old Danish midfielder for Celta Vigo. Ryan says Sisto has taken advantage of the Iago Aspas injury, scoring on a fantastic left-footed strike against Real Valladolid. That's what I said. Mm-hmm. Celtic are in desperate need of all the points they can get as they have fallen all the way to the relegation spots. Can I have one more go? Real Valladolid.
That's close enough. Daniel Martini scouting Manuel Locatelli, the 21-year-old Italian defensive midfielder on loan at Sassuolo from Milan. Locatelli scored his second goal of the season for Sassuolo after pouncing on a rebound and finishing top shelf. Sassuolo eventually won 3-0,
expensive spirits, huh?
leaving them 11th in the table. That's exactly where that goal belongs.
Tim Higgins is scouting Christopher Nkunku, the 21-year-old French midfielder for PSG. Tim says a move from PSG to Arsenal during the January window looked likely, but never materialised. Nkunku's PSG contract is up following the 2019-2020 season, so that's what, next season? So a move this summer for a small amount remains possible.
I think that should be smaller, my mistake there. But yeah, so the idea being that he's now closer to his contract expiring, so maybe that fee goes down.
There's essentially an XY graph, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Steve Renard scouting Yuri Tielemans, 21-year-old Belgian midfielder on loan at Leicester City from Monaco. After being linked with seemingly every club in Europe, Tielemans joined Leicester on loan on deadline day. The loan lasts until the end of the season, does not have a buyback clause, and saw Adrian Silva go the other way in a swap deal. Or swap loan deal, I suppose.
I gotcha, yeah. So a two-way swap.
Mm-hmm.
Everett Wolf is scouting David Brooks, the 21-year-old Welsh midfielder for Bournemouth, not the Washington Post columnist. No, New York Times columnist. Everett Wolf says David Brooks started and played a key role in Bournemouth's 4-0 win over Chelsea, notching a goal and an assist. For the assist, he controlled the ball in a tight space before side-footing a perfect pass for Joshua King to smash into the net. Brooks then got one of his own, picking up an errant David Luiz pass and then combining with King for a counter-attack. Unfortunately, Brooks left the game with an injury and was not in the squad this weekend as Bournemouth lost to Cardiff.
Final report of the day comes from Ryan Marzak scouting Josh Onoma, the 21-year-old English midfielder for Sheffield Wednesday. Things are not going well for Josh Onoma at Wednesday. Steve Bruce's takeover has been delayed due to health concerns, and Onoma has therefore not appeared in the club's last 7 matches. Rumors during the window linked him with a move to Germany, but no such moves occurred.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. What next for the English Modric?
I'm going to guess maybe more time on the bench until Steve Bruce arrives.
Yeah. Okay, one other thing maybe we're talking about is if I'm going to be out of action for at least a week, scouting's going to be hard, right? So I'm not sure how up to date we are on scouting.
We got a few more.
Could we make a request that maybe if you're someone who sends regular scouting reports, normally we love it because it keeps us updated, but maybe if people could be judicious and only send major updates, that would lighten the load on Taylor, right? And then if there's major updates to share with listeners if you do them solo, but then Taylor doesn't have to do all the scouting reports on his own. Yeah. Does that sound right?
I'm okay with
that.
Yeah,
okay. That sounds right to me.
Everything you say sounds right to me.
Just, it's my accent.
Except for your puns.
So just the big news, if you could please, with the scouting reports.
That works for me.
All right. I have nothing else to say.
Well,
so I guess I'll just say.
We've said a lot.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. You maybe won't hear me for a week or so except for one pre-recorded interview, but I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
We're coming to get you, Daryl Scullin.